Hello world and welcome back to this part of the tutorial, and today we are going to be updating the HUD that we created in the last part of the tutorial. And so first of all, let us go to the HUD scene, and we are going to attach a script to our HUD. So now we are going to creating some couples of functions in our HUD script. So first of all, we are going to create the set score function. Takes in an argument of score, and we are going to use this argument to update our score. There is a couple of things that I want to explain over here. So first of all, our score and test property only accept a string. As you can see, if you hover over the test, we get what it accepts, which is a string, and our score is an integer. So we need a way to convert that integer into a string, and we are going to be using the str function to do that. So we are going to be calling the function over here, and we pass in the score, and this will fix the problem of adding a string with an integer. So we are going to do the same thing for the else. Okay, ma. Okay, so now we are going to be and updating the out and the score label. So first of all, let's go to the main scene over here. So you can click on this icon over here to open the script of the main scene, and now we are going to be discussing about how to connect signals, because now we want to be connecting a signal from the player. First of all, let's go to the player scene and go to the player script, and I'm going to be adding a setters. The way this works is that every time the health value changes, the setter function is going to get called. And so we actually want this because every time the health changes, we want to be updating the label to display the correct health. So I'm going to be setting a setter to equal to a function, and so I'm going to be adding this function over here. First of all, we are going to be setting the health to equal to whatever value we get from the setters. To avoid naming convention, we are going to be adding an underscore to the health. So And now we are going to be calling uh a signal. In Godot, you might frequently heard a signal being emitted instead of being called. They basically means the same thing. So we are going to be creating this signal up over here. It's quite a common thing to place the signal just above the extend uh, uh, line, which is probably basically the first line that we extend whatever type they know this. You can already see that this is area 2D, so that is why you are extending the area 2D. So what this does is that it allows us to use all the functionalities of this area 2D. So after that, we are going to be calling our signal. Let us name it change out. And so we are going to be emitting this signal change out dot emit. And so we can connect this change out dot emit where it's with the main scene. But first of all, let us pass in the health right as an argument because we need the health. So let's go to the main scene, and I'm going to be making a reference to the player. So let's create a ready function, and over here we're going to be setting the player dot change out dot connect. Now what this does is that it's like we are creating every time the change out got emitted, we're going to be connecting it with another different function that we are creating. So you can easily go ahead and plug in the HUD and the HUD function over here, but I prefer creating a custom function for this. So don't forget, this is where the changes is getting emitted, and we are passing in an argument which is the health. So let us call this a change p out. So p just stands for the player, change the player out. So let us create the function, and don't forget the argument out. And so we're now going to call the HUD dot set health, the function that we've already defined, and I'm going to pass in health, and this should work perfectly as we expected. But let's go ahead and test it. First of all, we need to ensure that, let's go to the enemy bullet. We need to ensure that every time, okay, we are already doing that over here. So every time the bullet hit the player head got reduced by 10. So no, I'm not going to select that. Okay. Okay, now we can see that the health is getting updated as expected. Okay. Okay. Okay, there is a couple of things that we are going to do like first of all, we are going to set the limit of the health so that when the health reaches 0 and the player receives another hit, it is going to be a game over. So we are going to do that. We are going to be also adding the game over scene, so which is part of our HUD, by the way, and we are going to be adding the start game scene, which is also part of the HUD. So first of all, let's go ahead and update the score so that when the player destroys an enemy, the score got incremented by some amount. And by incrementing, I mean the score got increased by some amount. So let's go to the player bullet. Let's go to the script, and here is where we are going to be incrementing the score. So first of all, there are a couple of different ways to communicate signals with different with nodes. So we've already seen a way of doing this with the player scene that we used earlier by just emitting a signal. But of course, there is another way of doing this. So we are going to be discussing the other way in this. So we are not going to be setting the score over here. Let's go to the main. So this is where we are going to be setting the main, the player score. So score is going to start from 0, but at the same time we need a setters for this. Just call it change score or change p score, just to keep things consistent rather. So throughout our code, we want to keep things we don't want to change how we are naming things. And so again, we need the score, and here we are going to be setting we're going to be calling our HUD function, the HUD function, which is this set score that we've already defined earlier. So HUD dot set score, and I'm going to be passing in score. But first of all, this is very incorrect code. First of all, don't forget we need to set our score to equal to the value that we are getting, which is the underscore score. So now let's go ahead and test this thing. Okay, now let me destroy a player. I'm going to be seeing no changes because we are not updating anything when we destroy an enemy. So let's go ahead and do that. So you can already see that we can update the score over here whenever we destroy an enemy. So but instead of going through all the process of emitting signals or anything, you can just get the main scene over here through the group. The main scene is in the main group, and we are going to be changing the score property of the main scene. So that is exactly what we are going to do over here. So and so we can be incrementing the score by, I don't know, maybe 50. You can change this to whatever number you want. So let's just leave it at 50. And now let's go ahead and test this in, and everything should work perfectly. And voila, you can already see that when we destroy an enemy, the score got incremented by 50, and so we can already keep playing our game right now. But first of all, there are a lot of fixes that are going to do to this game. The player and the enemy bullets are moving very slow, and we're going to be fixing that now. And also, we are going to be spawning a lot of different enemies, so let's go ahead and do that. First of all, let's go to the enemy scene, to the animated sprite 2D, and let's just create lots of enemies. You can click over here to duplicate the current uh, animation, so it is enemy 2, so we can duplicate it, and I'm going to be creating, I think, 5. So let's go ahead and do that. I believe I've already explained the process of doing this in our previous tutorial, so this shouldn't be a problem at all. And so how we are going to be doing this is in the enemy script, uh, in the ready function over here, we're going to be playing a random animation, so that's from our animation list. So first of all, let's create an array to contain all the animation list. So enemy 1, so we have enemy 1, enemy 2, and enemy 3 to enemy 5. And so now that we've created the array, we're going to be picking randomly from the array. So I just say animation list dot pick random, and now we should be getting a random enemy every time the enemy gets spawned uh, on the main scene. So let's test that out. Okay, that's a different enemy. That's another different enemy. So I already see that we are getting a very different enemies. So, and of course, you might be wondering, how are we going to be differentiating between the player and the enemy? Of course, there is no way of differentiating, but you can already see that when we press the arrow button, we already saw the player getting moved. So that's how we are going to be knowing uh, which of them is the player and which of them are the enemies. So now let us go ahead and make changes to the player bullets and of course the enemy bullets. Okay, this is actually looking very good. So and so I think we'll be wrapping things up for now. So probably in the next tutorial we are going to be adding the background, and I don't know, maybe we are going to be discussing about light in this game, but it's a very short game and I don't want to make things complex. So well, that will be all for this part of the tutorial. And if you gained a thing or two, hit the like button and be sure to leave a comment and subscribe. Thank you and bye.